That's it right there, Gina.
What's up, YouTubers? It's CrownSpectro back here with another video for you guys, and today we're going to be talking about will there be a Dark Souls 4. Alright, Dark Souls is a really popular franchise, dark, pretty dark, and I don't know what you would really call this genre of, I guess you could call it like, I don't know, dark medieval type game, and Dark Souls is pretty awesome actually. It's a pretty great game. Came back out originally in 2011, and only 3 years later in 2014 Dark Souls 2 came out. So, and Dark Souls 3 of course released only 2 years after that, which is 2016. But as far as Dark Souls as a franchise go, nobody's really heard too much from Dark Souls. I mean, after all, I think Dark Souls is still keeping up with Dark Souls 3, still making, like, I think, bleed DLC content. And I think they have like a little online mode going on with it. I never really played Dark Souls 3, but that's regardless of the point. Anyways, I heard this is a great game, and this game has a huge fan base, and I've seen this fan base. Like, there's a lot of support for this game, which makes me honestly believe that this game is really great, and it has received great reviews. So, there's no reason for me not to doubt this game is not great. And as far as Dark Souls go, and as far as that will there be a Dark Souls 4, well, there was an interview back in 2016. You guys may have heard this, and maybe I've already heard this, but they talked with the game director from Software, which is the developer of Dark Souls, and from Software, the game creator of Dark Souls himself. I quote, "For me, Dark Souls 3 is the end, but it doesn't mean the end for Dark Souls." In other words, the game creator of Dark Souls himself he sees no further point in making this game. In other words, he doesn't see no more that he can add to this game. He doesn't see, any more he can add to this game. But he doesn't want the franchise to die, though. He doesn't want the series to die. He wants the series to continue to live, which is why he wouldn't mind anybody else willing from Software that wants to continue to pick up on the Dark Souls series and make a Dark Souls 4 to take over. It's just the creator himself has no desire whatsoever to, continue making a Dark Souls game. I mean, I guess that's pretty understandable. I mean, you guys is the guy that created the series himself, and I guess, at some point, when you create something and you take it as far as you can, and at some point you just you reach that point when you feel like you just, there's not too much more you can do to add to make this more greater, but you don't want to disappoint your fan base, and you just want to keep your fan base happy, right? And of course, this is why they still making a lot of DLCs from Dark Souls 3. But like I said, it's not like Dark Souls 4 that won't happen. It's just the creator himself just doesn't want to make it himself. But he's not down for the idea of someone else willing to pick it up. Now, a lot of you may think this is not a good idea due to the fact that, well, sometimes, somebody else taking over as the head, director, of a game like that from the original creator, sometimes, gives the game a new taste, a new feel. Sometimes it goes in a good way, and other times, well, it goes in a very bad direction, and leaves a very bad taste in your mouth. I mean, that's pretty understandable, right? But as far as Dark Souls as a franchise go, I'm pretty sure that, the fans are pretty, you guys be pretty down for Dark Souls 4, even if it was created by a different person, right? As long as the game still, maintains its original, value, what makes Dark Souls, basically. And, as long as it still has that Dark Souls feeling to it, and that what makes the game so great, and they add more new stuff to it, then I'm pretty sure that this game, or Dark Souls 4, can be even greater than any other Dark Souls, if done right, of course. If they do go through with this, I highly suggest that this game should be taking time and patience, and look through everything that they always worked on, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and to start thinking about things. And this game has indeed changed a lot over the time, because I do remember the first Dark Souls, and the first Dark Souls is a good game. But compared to Dark Souls 3, that game is pretty, what's the word, less, alright? This uses the word less right now, alright? And Dark Souls 3, obviously you can see how they switched over to a different engine for that game entirely, because obviously Dark Souls, it was talked about a lot that Dark Souls had a lot of different feelings to it. The movements and stuff were a lot better compared to the other Dark Souls games. And if they do make another Dark Souls 4, then it's gonna be even better, especially with new gen consoles coming out. And that's a lot going on with Dark Souls, and not to say that the Dark Souls series is finished, but the creator has no more desire. You know, the From Software is also indeed developing other games like I think the game they're working on mecha games now. This developer company is indeed working on games like Armor Core, which is like the mecha game of the sort. I mean, the creator of Dark Souls himself says he wants From Software to start focusing on different, you know, genres of games, you know, not just like the dark medieval type games, or, you know, just the dark fantasy games in general. You know, he just wants to start working on different sorts of types of games and explore to other things, you know. Give From Software a new taste and feel in different types of genres of games, and you know, it's not a bad thing. I mean, eventually every developer has to move on into a different type of game or genre of the sort, but you know, that's always good, you know. And I'm be sure to stay around and see what they're gonna make. Maybe a great game will come sooner or later. You guys tell me what you think down in the comment section below about Dark Souls 4 and will there be one. And I'm CrownSpectro, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.